Hello everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Roker Rapport, episode 8. You join us after another dismal display by Sunderland. Sad I can't bring you any better news, but them's the breaks. I'm joined here today by Callum. How you doing, Callum?
Not too bad, mate, yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Gav? Suicidal?
Yes.
Yes, of course you are. We need to get someone onto that. James, how you doing, mate?
I'm alright tonight, Gemma.
Not so bad. What about you, Tom? How's things across the pond?
Despondent, mate.
What, America or you?
Life.
Oh, I don't even know where to begin here, lads. We all watched the match. A good 8 minutes of a proper spanking that we got there. Yeah, I'm as depressed as usual. So that's it, really. That's it from me. I'm done for the rest of the cast. I'm not going to say anything.
What summed it up for me, we're watching the game, and obviously my missus is American, and she likes watching the games and that, you know, she finds it interesting. And she was like reading a book, and I'm sitting watching the game in bed, because it's on at like 7 over here, and she like looked up, she was like, it's 4-1. She's like, what happened? She last chapter I was on, it was only 1-1. I was like, oh no, we just conceded 3 in about 8 minutes. She was like, Jesus.
Last page, more like last page, never mind last chapter.
Maybe. I was like, God, yeah, that kind of summed it up for me. Like, she was like properly shocked by it.
Oh, that's just Sunderland though, isn't it? That's
Niall
not
Quinn
the
summed it up
first time
perfectly,
that's
didn't he?
happened. Yeah.
Niall was brilliant. I mean, he's just, the fact is, are they trying to play some sort of passing game? If they are, they're not confident enough to play it at the moment. They're just not playing at the strength. For me, there was no urgency. There's no closing down. I look at a team like Burnley, and I just look at the start of the season, would any of us have taken any of their players, maybe 1 or 2 of them, at a push? And at the moment, they fight for each other. They have a plan. They have a system. They also have a manager that instills belief. But I mean, I just look in that team. I just look at our side, and they look like they've already accepted relegation.
You need a solid core though, don't you? And it's like, you look at our midfield 3 that we've been putting out the last 4 or 5 games, and it's none the wonder we're not winning matches. You know what I mean? You know what, when Arsenal play, it's always through the midfield, and you need to compete in there. And then you look what we had. We had Pienaar, who's played his entire career as a winger. He's now 36, and he's playing centre mid in the Premier League. And you know what I mean? It's like, this is why we're not winning games. We don't have enough good players. And I know obviously you're looking at like Catamol and Kirchhoff being missing, but I mean, we just do not have enough good players. And like you say, there's teams in this league now who have got players who've played together for years, or at least a decent length of time. So there's teams like Burnley and Bournemouth maybe, and you know, they've got a bond and a spirit as a team, and they've got a will to win. What we won't have at all this season. I don't even see that changing, even if we get, you know, our injured players back, because the likelihood is that by the time we are in a decent enough shape to start winning games, or at least even drawing games, it's going to be too late, because we're 10 games in now, you know what I mean? With 28 games left, and you're probably looking at needing 36-7 points to stay in the Premiership usually. And can anybody see that happening? Because it's just, I mean,
there's the thing for me is there's clearly no organisation. There's no kind of desire that, you know, the team don't know they don't seem to know what each other are doing. They don't seem to know who's man's who. But for me as well, there's no leaders on the pitch. There's no one organising the team. I mean, especially when O'Shea went off. But even before that, like, there's no one who, like, they don't bollock each other when a goal goes in. And, like, you know, I when you look back at like the Norwich game at the end of last season, one of the main reasons we won that game, you can say we scored some good goals and we played some decent stuff and we had a decent game plan. But everyone said that at the end of that game how crucial Lee Catamol was to that win. How he was driving the team on, galvanising them, blocking everything, throwing himself in front of it. And when he was getting up, he did that thing where it's just classic Lee Catamol. You know, he gets up, he grits his teeth, he grabs people by the collar, and he shouts at them and he's like gritting his teeth. And there's none of that. They just look at each other. When a goal goes in, they look at each other. They shake their heads and they flap their arms and they get the ball and they go back to the centre line. And there's no resilience. There's no leaders. And there's all this stupid clear the air meeting that they had, in between games last week. I don't want them to clear the air in the academy over a coffee or something like that. I want them on the pitch, demanding more from each other. That's what I want.
The problem is. Go on.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I want to see them. I want to see desire, and I want to see organisation, and I want to see leaders and responsibility, and that for the fourth goal yesterday was just the icing on the cake of that. It just cemented it, because Januzaj came on and I don't think he knew where he was playing. Gibbs had a free run as soon as he came on. Those 3 goals, all of them could be traced to Januzaj not doing what he should be doing. I mean, fair enough. Other people were other players were awful as well. But 2 of those goals, Gibbs is free on the left and no one's tracking him. The only player I saw throwing himself in front of stuff, tracking men, and having a bit of a go at anyone was Billy Jones. That's the only player I saw doing it. And that to me, just when I saw that, I was like, you know what, done. I'm done. That's it.
When Billy Jones is your best player, like Billy Jones, I mean, you're in a bit of bother. I mean, what Gav said with our midfield, and you look at Jack Rodwell, my disdain for him, but he was probably one of the better players. I didn't actually think he was as bad as the other 2 in the centre, but he still can't pass. He still, whenever we seem to break and the ball comes through him, it stops because he can't pick a pass. I mean, you look at Didier and Dong, and I'm sorry, he looks scared at the moment.
No, rabbit headlights.
Yeah, he is. He's completely devoid of confidence, self-belief. I mean, 13.6 million for him. It's not fair to ban this record signing, around. But if you spend that money, you need someone to have an impact. And I'm sorry, he's not having an impact. And you look at our other big signing, 8 million for Patty Gilabodji. I mean, I'm sorry, you get
Patty accurate first name. He is absolute Pat.
He just gets beaten in the air. He's consistently beaten in the air. Positionally, he's atrocious. I mean, he's him and Kone. To be honest, I mean, I saw a clip on the internet of focusing on Kone for their 4th goal. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it's one of the most embarrassing pieces of defending I've ever seen. He backs out the way of at least 2 challengers, and he just looks like he can't be arsed. I think he's still sulking because he didn't get his move.
Yeah, he's ready to go, isn't he?
But
he is.
The thing is though, like I've heard this kind of thing said before, like about players when they want to win that they don't try. But I remember hearing I think it may have been Kevin Ball or Kevin Phillips at a talk speak about how no player goes on the pitch and doesn't want to win the game they're playing in, regardless of what's going on off it. But then you look at someone like Kone, and you just think, like, what the hell has happened to him? Because he was so good last season. I think it's pretty lazy, actually. It's pretty lazy to go, well, we haven't got Allardyce, we haven't got Kabul, because he's still a 28-year-old defender who plays for the Ivory Coast that, not too long ago was demanding a fee of 18 million quid. It shouldn't make a difference that Kabul's not there. That doesn't excuse the way he's playing for me. Like he's so different this season to what we saw at parts of last season when he was a commanding presence and he won everything. I mean, the way he introduced himself to us with that challenge on Yaya Toure against Man City, we knew we've got a good player, and then you compare that to this player. I don't think you'd sell him for eight quid. No mind.
If he goes to Everton, if Kone goes to Everton, he's a star there, in my opinion. He's got everything you need to be a good centre back. Like whereas Gilabodji he literally looks like he's chasing a fly sometimes. He's like he's running around all over the shop. But Kone, you look at how many like yellow cards he received when he was playing in France and how many he's got since he's played for us. He doesn't dive in He reads the game quite well. He read the game very well last season, but this season, it does look like on occasion he just thinks, what's the point? You know what? Why should I bother? And you know, against Arsenal, it was one of those days where I think not just Kone, but a lot of them just didn't try. They just looked like they weren't trying. They were sauntering back. They just kind of gave up.
Do you not reckon that which on Djilabodji though? Do you not reckon if he's been thrown under a bus as well? Like I know he's not. He's clearly not good enough. But there was a moment in the game, right, where we had a goal kick. Pickford plays it 20 yards or so to him, and he's under no pressure really. And he sees Sanchez run at him. He turns, hoofs it back at the keeper, who then has to go along, and the ball comes back to Arsenal. And I'm just thinking, like, why we're trying to play out the back with players like that?
Yeah.
He's clearly he's 6'4". He's a big lad, and you're asking him to play from the back, and it's not. I remember like somebody at the top of the show said about Quinn, his thoughts after the game. I did manage to catch them actually, even though I was at the match. I managed to catch what he was saying, and his input was that really Moyes is not playing to the strengths of the players, and that's the way out of this. And when you look at that performance yesterday, we're playing Arsenal, probably in man for man, and in terms of the way they play with a two-touch football, probably one of the best football teams in the world, and we're trying to play out from the back against them. You know what I mean? It's like you're not helping yourself at all. You're not helping the players that are there, because Djilabodji is a very, very rank average player. He'll probably struggle when we go down. We are going down. Like, I've got no doubt about that.
You know what else was frustrating, Gav, when you're saying why are we trying to play out the back? When we scored the goal was when they put a long ball up against Mustafi, and we were able to put pressure on them in their own in their final third of the pitch. We were never going to play through them. So I didn't understand why Anichebe wasn't playing. I didn't understand why that midfield three, why weren't they covering to allow Van Aanholt and Billy Jones get forward more? We just didn't, like, we thought we could go toe to toe with Arsenal and try and play a game that they thrive on. They starve you of the ball and they score. We had no idea what we were doing in that game.
You made a good point there actually about Anichebe, right? I didn't catch the whole game midweek, but by all accounts, he was probably one of our strongest players. Had a decent enough game playing up front, and then what's his reward for playing well? It's sitting on the bench. You know what I mean? We haven't got enough players playing well to just start. I said this last month when McNair had a good game against QPR. I mean, consequently, since he's played a few games and he's been poor, but McNair scores twice against QPR and doesn't start. And I mean, you know what I mean. And then there's Anichebe, probably our best performer against Southampton, and he's on the bench. And it's like we aren't helping ourselves at all here with the tactics, the team selection. I mean, dropping Manquillo was the right move for me, and I thought Billy Jones did all right. I know he felt a bit, but you know, so did everybody else.
See, the thing is though, with Billy Jones, if you watch the goals, he's left to deal with like 2 or 3 players, and he's like chasing backwards and forwards, and other players like Undong and Kazri and Van Aanholt are just walking back, and Januzaj is like nowhere in sight, and it just looks like he's just thrown Januzaj on, and then they don't understand what system they're playing, they don't understand who's playing where, and he comes out after the game, he says, oh, you know, Arsenal have better players, you know, and better better subs off the bench. That scoreline, those goals, in my opinion, had nothing to do with Arsenal's quality. They had everything to do with our inability to be organised and resolute and defend. And Arsenal didn't have to work that hard for those goals. You're always going to have a weaker team than Arsenal. You're always going to have a weaker team than Man United. But you can give them a good game. You can set yourself up to give them a good game. Burnley showed that yesterday. You know, they got a lot of shots against them, but they were resolute, and it took their goalkeeper having a good game and everything. But you can go out, even if you lose, you can say, well, do you know what? We lost to the better team, but we did our jobs well. At the end of the day, we lost to quality, but we can hold our heads high in the fact that we had a game plan and we stuck to it and we nearly got something out of it.
Yeah, you make it hard for them.
That's so far from what happened yesterday that, you know, I can't believe that he would use that as an excuse, because it's obvious that Arsenal have a better team. that's not an excuse. You can still give them a good game. It just drives me mad, like it really does.
They're not, the team themselves aren't resolute at all. They don't seem to fight for each other. I mean, going back to the passing out from the back. I mean, I don't know if that's been something that David Moyes has always tried to do throughout his career. I mean, I've never seen it. I don't know why he try and do it now. I mean, Poyet tried to do it, and he pretty much failed.
I read an interview with Van Aanholt in the build of the game where he said that he was asked by, I think, Squawker, something like that, asked what the big difference in style between Allardyce and Moyes was, and he said that David likes to play out from the back. And I read it. This was only on Friday. I read it and I was like, do it. And then so I made a point on Saturday while I was at the game to try and take note of how much we did it, and we did it pretty much every time Pickford got the ball, and it was frustrating, to be honest, because we didn't do anything with the ball. It was going from Pickford to a defender, maybe across the pitch to the other centre half, back to Pickford, then long, then we'd lose the ball, then Arsenal would keep possession. And I think their first goal, they maybe put 25 passes together before the ball hit the back line. Do you know what I mean?
The thing is,
we weren't helping ourselves. Like,
Pickford's left foot is good enough to pick out someone in the opposition half. Why not? Why not crowd their final third with 2-3 players and just go long and cause them hell on, and just try and stay compact at the back, try and sort of man the walls and stop Arsenal breaching through, and then when we get a chance, why not just punt it up and have a go? That yesterday was the only success we saw. There was one point where Pickford pinged this absolutely lovely ball out wide for Watmore. Unfortunately, his first touch wasn't great, but it basically put him one-on-one with the final defender. And then we obviously get the penalty. Again, a long ball up, Mustafi doesn't deal with it. Watmore goes through and, ultimately got the penalty and we scored. But that was where we saw success. And it beggars belief that just us, like a bunch of lads on a podcast, can see this and determine what's going wrong. And David Moyes, who's getting paid a fortune, doesn't know that seemed to be what was the most successful plan of action.
Exactly right. Like all season, we've been lumping a ball up to Jermaine Defoe, and it seems to be this is the game he's chosen to go play it out from the back against arguably the best passing side in the league. It's just yet another mistake from David Moyes for me.
We've got some questions. Sorry, I'm reading through some of them now as you're talking, and some of them are really cracking me up. I mean, we've covered a good 10 of them are about Moyes, whether or not he's going to get the sack, blah blah blah. We've already figured out that he's not going to get the sack, is he? Sadly. So to all of those who asked you a question about what we're going to do about Moyes, well, there's nothing going to get done about Moyes. So you just got to sit down and settle in for a really, really distressing season, in my opinion. But on the note of tactics, we have a question from Sunderland Buffalo. And it says, why does Moyes continue with the 4-2-3-1? What formation would we go? We need two strikers. Look at Burnley versus United. Tom, what do you think about
that? What do I think about the 4-2-3-1? I don't like it. I think we should just go for a flat-out 4-3-3. Let the two wingers provide the width that... we seem to try and play with wingers when we don't have any wingers, which blows my mind. So I think we need to be really solid in the middle. We just need 3 holding players in there. We need to put Anichebe, Watmore and Defoe up front and play a more direct game. And to be honest, that's what we did against every team we got a result against last season. We seemed to play with some width coming from our full backs. We were very solid throughout the spine of our team. And that's how we created chances. We got from front to back very quickly. We didn't try and play out the back. Hasn't, as people have pointed out, didn't work under Gus Poyet. Hasn't ever worked when we've tried to play this ticky-tacky style of football. For me, we just need to be more direct. And as we've already said, Niall Quinn said, play to your strengths. We have a real good striker. We have some real pace up front. And if we can put a body in there that is a giant wrecking ball, in all honesty, you're going to create a load more chances. We can't play with flair right now, which is depressing to say, but just be realistic.
Yeah,
be realistic and think, how can we win? And that's it.
I'd play 5 at the back myself. I'd play 5 at the back and 2 up top. I think if you play with wing backs, I think Manquillo obviously is flat to deceive at times, but on his opening game against Saints, he seemed to play more of a wing back, and he played quite well. We all know that Patrick Van Aanholt is a better as a wing back, and if you play Anichebe up there with Jermaine Defoe, if you are forced to go direct, then it gives you a better option. You know, he is a bit of he's a big lump, isn't he? And he might bring people into play.
It's all he does.
Yeah. When you get somebody alongside Defoe, like, it's really, 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 really pissing me off watching it. Like, and it has all season. When we're not in possession of the ball, he's being occupied by two centre halves, and then the next plan of action when we get possession is to lump it forward, and there's like 50 yards of space between him and the midfield. And if you're going to do that, if your tactic when you're under pressure, and it's fine, teams do it. If your tactic when you're under pressure is to lump it forward and try and push yourselves up 10, 15 yards, then why aren't you playing somebody who can hold it up? I mean, even Allardyce recognised that last year, and it frustrated the life out of us watching Danny Graham and Doy playing left wing, because we knew that the problem really with them out there was they weren't contributing much. But then you can kind of see with the squad of players, I mean, it's not changed that much. You can kind of see with the squad that we've got, the limitations that they have when they're out of possession, and you need somebody to hit, and it's not Jermaine Defoe, like, and he should be sitting on the bench, and he might not score a single goal all season, but he's got to be better at holding up the ball than Defoe is, and maybe even bringing others into play like Watmore, because, I mean, even when we're lumping it forward to Watmore times yesterday, and he's not going to win a single header.
He literally runs the ball.
But he looked more.
It's so funny watching him.
But he did look most threatening when he was running through the middle, and he won the penalty off the back of being, I guess, more of a striker, using his pace to get in behind teams. I mean, we've said so many times that he's not a winger. His raw pace is the only thing he has going for him. Why not try and use him to his one strength?
Yeah. I mean, I would prefer a 4-3-3 to 5 at the back. I think you're right about the width the width needs to come from the fullbacks, because we haven't really got any proper width, any like proper wingers in attacking positions. And if you can play Anichebe and have Defoe off him, and you can just have someone like Watmore kind of buzzing around up top, causing trouble. Someone like Barini as well when he comes back in, just causing trouble, finding space, looking for the ball to drop around Anichebe, and then you can have the three midfielders that you're talking about playing out from the back. There's no. First of all, there's not a lot of movement in midfield. Coming, asking for the ball, getting a bit of space, a bit of time, and then when they get the ball, there's no confidence and there's no vision to actually do anything with it. So it just ends up going back anyway. So if you've got that in midfield, if that's all you've got for now, why try and play that way? You're absolutely right about that. Why not play to your strengths if all you've got is 3 midfielders who aren't particularly, mobile or aren't going to be able to get that kind of space and pick that pass? Why not just have them offering the protection in front of the 2 centre backs, allowing the full backs, Van Aanholt, who's one of our main attacking threats, allowing him to get forward, and then up front you've got that target man in Anichebe, and you can have Defoe and Watmore and Kazri and Barini causing trouble, buzzing in and around that, trying to collect the second balls. Because if you put Anichebe up against someone like Ashley Williams, and Ashley Williams will probably have a fair shout against him, but or Wes Morgan, but if you put them up against like Mustafi and Koscielny, they're not the most physical defenders. They're just very competent defenders who can nick the ball away from you, or read the flight of a ball really well and are good with it at their feet. But if you put someone like Anichebe up against them, it would unsettle them, I think, a lot more. So you've got to choose your games. You've got to choose your opponents and study them. And Arsenal studied us. Arsenal know that we're shite at crosses and set pieces.
At all. Like, I think every team that comes up against us now is just like 3 points.
They know we're shite at crosses and set pieces, and they know that we're weak at fullback. And it wasn't a coincidence that a lot of the goals came from that, where with Arsenal you wouldn't usually associate them with whipping crosses in and stuff like that. It's
exactly right.
That's my opinion. That's just my opinion.
It's probably the only time that Arsenal have scored from 3 crosses in a game, probably for about 10 years.
I think
they always try and pass around.
Saying a statistic about it being a low-scoring game. Like how Arsenal have failed to score more than one goal sort of thing over the years, and they thrash us forward.
In the 15 games between us on Sunderland, preceding this one, there was only 4 of them went over 2 goals a game. You know what I mean?
It's just that season,
it's
isn't it?
actually a pretty low scoring game. But I know every game's different and stuff. But generally, when Arsenal come to Sunderland, it would appear that we shut up shop and we try and stay tight.
That would be the
Clearly
sensible thing to do.
Totally
Right, we've got some more. We've got quite a few questions. Some of them. I'm going to field one actually that I think is quite decent. This one's from Michael Scott Esquire. How many shots of bleach does it take to down a 240-pound male? Now I'm going to field this one because I actually did some research for you, Michael. Now the reality of it is, when you're drinking bleach, it's a really nasty way to die. It's not going to kill you straight up. You might suffocate because as you chemically burn your insides by taking in this chemical, your respiratory system will create phlegm in order to promote healing and protect the cells. And you'll actually end up drowning in your own phlegm, mate. That's the reality of it. Which may, which
Still
may
better
or may
than watching
not be
Sunderland,
a
though.
better alternative than watching Sunderland. But then if you somehow do survive that, you'll die in a couple of weeks of liver poisoning. So yeah, on the sweeter things. I suppose what I really want to say, we were talking about it before the podcast. Obviously, everyone's blaming Moyes, everyone's blaming the players. I think there must come a time when, especially after all these years now, and you see this habit forming. Well, it has formed. It formed a long time ago. Constant hire and fire policy. We never really nailed down any momentum moving between season to season. So even if we do finish a season very well, like last season, for example, that does not in any way, shape or form mean that we will continue that good form the next season. Ellis Short, that's what I'm going to say. I think he's bad for the club. I think he's really bad for this club. I think he's got designs and ulterior motives that he doesn't want to tell us about, and frankly isn't forced to tell us about. He's not obliged to say anything because that's the remit of a billionaire who, you know what I mean, who just owns a business. I don't like the bloke. I've really gone off him, to be honest. So,
see, I don't know about like ulterior motives. I mean, I think the main mistake he's made was when Niall Quinn left as chairman. He took over as chairman. He could be the owner, but the lack of some football nous and a football brain on the board for so long, and no one sitting alongside him with a bit of football experience, that's been his downfall. He's definitely, there is a lot worse owners out there than Ellis Short, guaranteed. I mean, he's backed quite a few of the managers we've had. I mean, the thing is, when, for example, the Udinese model, the fabled Udinese model, we were all we all backed that, didn't we? It was a fantastic plan when it came, and it didn't turn out to be the way. He's sacked managers at the right time. We've always seen an upturn in form. He's given money to quite a few of those managers. He has made some mistakes as well.
Can I just interject there? When you say he sacks managers at the right time, we've already established that Moyes isn't going anywhere. So unless, I mean, what have we got now? We've got 28 games left of the season, 1 transfer window. That is as good as it's going to get. Do you know what I mean? People are saying wait until the Hull game. Presumably people are saying that because Hull are shite. In reality, if we beat Hull by some miracle, we manage to string together 2 passes and get a couple of decent goals and defend when they attack us. What does that mean? What does that say? If we're all expecting him to turn things around by the time we play what we deem as a lesser team, although I can't really say that, it's not really fair to any other team in the Premier League to claim that we're better than any of them at the moment. What will that mean? Will that mean anything? Will that mean that Ellis Short made a fantastic decision sticking with Moyes because we beat Hull that one time? Bearing in mind that would only give us we'd take us up to 5 points on the board. So what then if we lose another 3 games after that, 5 games, 10 games? Do you know what I mean? He has to.
Yeah,
if he's going to do that, if he's going to be consistent with his firing of the managers in order to keep us in the Premier League, he needs to do it now. He needs to pull the trigger now.
This reminds me a lot. I'm not saying like for like, but last season when Newcastle's chief exec Charnley was fully behind McLaren until it got far too late to make any sort of change that would have kept them up. This reminds me of that. He was totally behind a man who it was clear from day one wasn't right for the job. And I'm seeing the same thing from Moyes. I've been pretty fair with Moyes, I think. I don't know if I've been overly harsh at times, but I mean generally I think that I do agree with the sentiment that we do need somebody in charge who's going to be here longer than just half a season, like we have become used to. But I think sometimes we as fans can just tell after 5 minutes if somebody's right. And the only case you sort of hear for Moyes from anybody who is still pretty patient on the subject is that there has to come a time when we stop sacking managers. But the problem is, just because David Moyes is in charge now doesn't mean that has to be him. I mean, we are dangerously close to relegation, and if we go down, it's not going to be this easy route that we've seen Newcastle sort of trudge the last few weeks, where they are clearly too good for that league. We aren't going to be like that.
Well, we haven't got £150 million squad, have we? I mean,
I think the thing about Ellis Short is, you're quite right about we've said he's going to stick with Moyes, and the reason he's going to stick with Moyes is because he came out and he said he's the guy that I wanted for every job. Now, first of all, that's concerning because we've had different models of like director of football and different kind of transfer targets and scouting systems. So what he's doing is he's going for the name instead of going, is that guy right for the system that we've currently got in place? So first of all, that's concerning. Second of all, if he sticks with David Moyes in spite of everything, we know that he puts his own ego above Sunderland, because if he did what's right for Sunderland, he would sack David Moyes. If he does what's right for him because he wants to protect his reputation, because he said David Moyes is his choice, then I think that says a lot about his motives. Now with Newcastle, it was exactly the same. They got McLaren and they put him on the board, and they said, right, this is the guy. They gave him a long contract. The fact that they put him on the board says that they were expecting him to be like the main, like the bridge between the boardroom and the pitch, and therefore the fans. Now, that's to me is one of the reasons that they stuck with McLaren for so long, because they knew that they'd invested a lot in him being a success. Now, I don't care how long a contract he's got. What I care about is what I'm seeing on the pitch, and those, like I said, those players they've got no drive, they're not organised, and they're not playing for him. I don't care what anyone says. Those players would give more for. There are many managers who could get more from those players, and it's not about quality or tiredness as much as it is about what he's able to get from those players. So I would say that's my opinion about Ellis Short. I think that if he does what's right for Sunderland, he sacks him. If he does what's right, if he tries to protect his own reputation.
What do you think, Tom?
For me, I think he's ignorant personally. I really do. I think he's ignorant because he, like you said, he's a businessman. He comes in and we've already sort of ascertained that he's kind of got rid of all of the football and personalities at the club. I mean, Kevin Ball seems to have buggered off. Niall Quinn's gone. He seems to have got rid of everybody who kind of understood the club, and it's been sort of his way or the highway. And what an absolute nightmare that's been, in all honesty. We don't hear anything from him, and that's 99% of the issue. I mean, if he'd come out and said to us, he gave us like a half-assed letter at the beginning of the season saying that we were right to give him criticism, blah, 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 but David Moyes was the man to do the job. And if he comes out and tells us what's going on, then maybe we don't have to speculate. The fact we owed £100 million alone last year suggests to me that there's something very, very wrong financially at the club. And if you looked at Martin Bain's interview last week with SAFC.com, some of the stuff he was saying, it sounds like Ellis Short has basically told him we're skint. You've got no money, but what I want you to try and do is make the best of a bad situation, because he said stuff like, we need to go on the journey again. He says that not only that, it sounds not just a journey, but that we need to build for the future, that the fans need to stick with the club. To me, that sounds like relegation talk. Those are actual words coming out of his mouth, that we need to stick with the club. And he says, like it or lump it, we should be looking at bringing players to this club and selling them on for greater value. That's totally right, mate. But at the end of the day, we need to be in the Premier League to be able to do that. So for me, it sounds like Ellis has sort of messed us around financially, in all honesty. He comes out and says he's invested a load of money into this club. But Damian's made this point before. He's invested the money, but he hasn't gifted us the money. Might be an interest-free loan, but ultimately he gets the money back. And it just blows my mind how much debt we're in a league that is showering the clubs with hundreds of millions. 20th place takes £100 million away this year. In a league that's showering its clubs with an absolute fortune of TV money, somehow we are hemorrhaging money left, right and centre. And Martin Bain says we need to rebuild, we need to restructure. The immediate priorities are to become lean and mean, and we need efficiency.
A lean, mean championship machine.
Honestly, that's the way it's going. It seems to me like we're being primed for relegation. Everything to me points to that. And
they said I was listening on Talk Sport in the week. I know, call me a moron for that, but they were saying that often with American owners, they seem to, at the start of their reign, they seem to like invest quite heavily, and then they get bored. Yeah. And I'm wondering if, because I'm looking at his tenure now. So he took control a bit. He was chairman December 2008, and since then, we had a little bit of an upward trend with Steve Bruce. I don't like him at all, but actually looking back, he had a pretty decent spell. And then since then, Paolo, that went tits up. Gus, we thought we were onto something. That went tits up. Dick Advocat saved us. We probably shouldn't have gone back to him. That went tits up. Sam Allardyce we thought we had stability. That went tits up.
Hand grenade.
We've got David Moyes now, who
it's all going tits up.
He's signed a brand new team pretty much. It's his team. No one else's. He signed these players. Not one of those players is an upgrade on what happened last season. And it looks like we're just limping our way to relegation.
It's like what Tom's saying, and obviously we've discussed it already before this. Like, if Short does want to go, if he wants to go, he needs to clear debt. And we have a massive amount of debt. So, what happens? How do you sell a distressed asset? Which is what Short focuses on. He's the expert in such things. So, in reality, you wouldn't sell when you consider that all of that money is owed to him. You wouldn't be able to sell that for any profit. He couldn't sell Sunderland for a profit now. Most you could get for Sunderland, face value, about 120 million, something like that. Do you know what I mean? 150 million maybe, and that's nearly as much debt as we're in. So he wouldn't be walking away with any money in his pocket. In reality, even if we get relegated, especially if we get relegated, we get more money than if we stayed in the Premier League this season. So all he has to do is relegate us. He gets his money back, and then he sells. And it's as simple as that. To me, it's simple mathematics. I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist, but Christ almighty, we can all see the obviousness of this, can't we?
Yeah. I would just, what I would want to say is that there's a lot of people who sort of want to back Shaw and back Moyes to the hilt because they associate that with backing the club to the hilt. Now, I distinguish between the two because Short and Moyes are the operators. They are the custodians of the club. Now, I see the club as something separate completely. I see the club as the fans and the history and the culture and the community and you know this what we're doing here, the kind of the interest and the passion that it generates and the love that we have for the club that lasts past players and teams and managers and owners. Now, at some point, if you see custodians of the club and managers and owners and coaches and chief executives and whatever damaging the club and not living up to their responsibility, in your eyes, it becomes a responsibility to say, well, no, we're not going to let you get away with that. We need to talk about this. You know, we need to have honest conversations about what you're doing wrong. And that, to me, that's not attacking the club. If I'm saying that Short's doing something wrong or Moyes is doing something wrong, I'm living up to the fact that I love the club,
exactly.
and therefore,
on that note,
and that's
sorry to cut you off with that, but
sorry,
something Moyes said post Arsenal. Was it post Arsenal or pre Arsenal? I can't remember. I think it might have been the pre-game presser actually. Anyway, he was asked about what a victory would mean to the city. Do you know what I mean? Which is a pretty basic PR question to answer. Do you know what I mean? If you're in the city, you turn around, oh yeah, it means loads to the city. It means loads to the city. I love the city, I love the people, I love the fans. That's what you would do normally. Instead, Moyes decided to turn around and say, well, I don't know, I'm not in the city, you'd have to go and ask them. He literally said that. I'm not from the city, you'd have to ask them. How hard is it to turn around and say, yeah, they love it. They love football up here. Here's the other one, right? Ellis Short, castle in Scotland, mansion in London, doesn't live in Sunderland, mate. Doesn't live in Sunderland. Personally, if I owned the Stadium of Light, I'd move into it. It would be my home. Do you know what I mean? That's I would eat, shit, shower there. That's just you wouldn't get me to leave. But
8 a.m. kick about on the pitch,
exactly.
take the ball out and just
commanding the players to come and play with me. But this is what bothers me. So there is no connection, as Callum was saying. There isn't. Yeah. These people are essentially they're interlopers. Do you know what I mean? They come here, they're here temporarily. As soon as it goes badly for them, they can just pack up and walk. Do you know what I mean? Moyes, if he gets the sack now, or he decides to walk, he walks away with millions from his contract. It means nothing to him beyond the job and saving his own face.
If you look where our debts come from, it's come from sacking managers and then bringing another manager in and letting him buy a load of dross. To me, that's moronic. Like, Ellis Short must be an absolute moron if he genuinely thinks that he's put his life all into this club and he's done everything for it. Like Damian says, he doesn't live here, he doesn't know really much about us, and he's just created this like toxic cycle of hire fire. And you're right, it's us who are left to deal with it in the end. And it baffles me that how can people not get it right? It's not hard, you know. He's a billionaire. He's done things right in the past. And the whole situation is infuriating me because the main issue for the fans is we don't know who to blame now. Is it Moyes? No, it can't be Moyes. There must be something else going on. Oh, but Ellis Short's tried his best, so it must be David Moyes. Oh, but what about this Martin Bain bloke? We literally don't know where to direct our frustrations. And nobody's clarifying anything. We have political spin from Martin Bain midweek, where he's kind of hesitant to talk about anything other than saying we need to be lean, mean, and efficient. We don't know what's going on. We have literally no idea of the situation we're in.
At the end of the day, it's just words. It's just cheap platitudes, and that's all I've seen. I'll believe it when I see it. You know, I'll believe it when it actually when a plan kind of starts to form. And at the minute, I've seen cheap platitudes from like arrogant businessmen and washed-up managers, and that's it. That's all I've seen. And you know, that, like you said, their plan was to buy cheap and try and sell on. You know, build players and then try and sell them on. Which of those players that he's bought are going to be sold on for a profit? Love. I'll put my neck on the line and say none of those players. The only one is Johnny Love, and we might get 550,000 for him instead of the 500,000 we pay. That's the only one. You know, the best signing has been Pienaar, and he hasn't even been that good, and he's 35.
I completely agree with that.
You know, I'll believe this plan when I see it, and until then, all I'm hearing is just these, you know, kind of cliches and just these, you know, like I said, platitudes from these people who you know, kind of try and throw you out some compliments and hope that it placates you. It doesn't placate me. I can see it on the pitch. You know, I'm not willing to buy into this until I see something, concrete, until I see something of substance. And the appointment of Moyes just indicates to me that they've got absolutely no idea what they're looking for, and they've got absolutely no idea what kind
I
of
want a
club they
gavel.
want to be.
I just want a
or,
gavel saying it.
or-
Here. Here, that man. But yeah, I'm sure we all agree with Callum basically on that. So if you're a long-suffering Sunderland fan and you need someone to talk to, then you can always reach me at 07494. No, not really. I'm not giving you my number. You can reach us on Twitter though. Right. Thanks very much for joining us for episode 8. I'm both sorry and not sorry that I haven't got any good news for you, because on the one hand it's not my fault, on the other hand I have to talk about it and I know how depressing it is. Thanks lads for joining me again, and you'll have another episode next week, same time. This will be out Monday morning. Check us out on iTunes and Acast, the podcast app. Subscribe. Thank you very much. All the lads. This is Roker Rapport signing off.